In this video, we dive into the movie Titanic 1997, where we will explore the storyline, break down the plot, and take a closer look at the cast and the character. We will also discuss the film production detail and examine its box office performance. Finally, we will share our thoughts and personal reactions. So, let's get started. When we being talk about the Titanic 1997, we are not just discussing a movie, we are discussing a thematic event. Titanic is one of those rare films that transcends its time. It is worth revisiting, reanalyzing, and rediscovering because it stands at the intersection of epic romance, historical drama, and large scale disaster filmmaking. First, let's gently warm up with the genre. Titanic is not simply a romance, it is not merely a disaster film, it is not just historical drama, it is a carefully layered blend of all three. The romantic core, the love story between Jack and Rose give the audience emotional access to a historical tragedy. Without that love story, the sinking of the ship might feel distant, almost documentary like. But by grounding the narrative in personal emotion, the film transforms history into something intimate. The disaster genre bring tension and spectacle while the historical setting add weight and realism. That combination is rare and it's one reason the film continue to be discussed decades later. Now let's turn our attention to the director James Cameron. Cameron is known for pushing boundaries. Before Titanic, he had already directed large scale films like The Terminator and Aliens, demonstrating his ability to combine action with emotional storytelling. But Titanic was different. It was ambitious on a completely new level. Cameron did not simply want to tell a love story set on a ship. He wanted to recreate the ship with astonishing historical accuracy. His vision was immersive. He aimed to make the audience feel as thought to recreate the ship with astonishing historical accuracy. Now, his vision was immersive. He aimed to make the audience feel as though they were physically present on the deck of the ill fated RMS Titanic. The production budget of Titanic 1997 is often cited as one of the most significant financial commitments in late 20th century filmmaking. At the end of its release, the estimated cost was approximately 200 to 210 million US dollar, making it the most expensive film ever produced up to that point. In the mid 1990s, most large studio film operated on substantially smaller budget, so the scale of investment immediately drew industry attention. The high cost generated skepticism in trade circles, particularly because the film was a romantic historical drama rather than an established action franchise or sequel. A large portion of the budget was devoted to physical production design. Director James Cameron prioritized realism and historical accuracy when required the construction of a near full scale replica of RMS Titanic rather than relying solely on miniatures or partial sets. The production team built extensive ship sections including detailed recreations of the grand staircase, dining room, and the third class quarter. This commitment to authenticity significantly increased construction expenses. The scale of the set follow allowed for dynamic camera movement and large crowd scenes. but it is also required major investment in engineering, materials, and labor. Another substantial allocation went to water-based staging and practical effect. The film involved complex flooding sequence that required specially constructed water tank and mechanical rigs capable of tilting massive set pieces. Managing these sequences required coordination among stunt performers, safety team, and visual effects supervisor. The logistical challenge of filming extended water scenes contributed to delay and cost overrun. Safety measures alone represented a significant financial component as working with large volume of water and moving structure presents inherited risk. Visual effects also absorbed a considerable share of the budget. While computer generated imagery was still developing in the 1990s, Titanic used digital tools to extend the ship, create a realistic ocean environment, and stimulate large crowd. However, unlike many modern blockbusters that rely primarily on digital environment, this production combines CGI with practical effect and physical sets. This hybrid approach required investment in both traditional craftsmanship and emerging digital technologies, increasing overall expenditure. Actor salaries were notable but not the dominant cost factor compared to infrastructure and technical requirements. Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet were rising stars at the time rather than established actors commanding the highest pay level in Hollywood. As a result, more of the financial resources were constructed on production scale rather than star compensation. The extended shooting schedule, however, contributed to additional labor and equipment costs as delay often amplify budgetary pressure in large production. When compared to high budget film of the era, Titanic exceed many of them in scale. For example, Waterworld 1995 had previously drawn attention for its approximately $175 million budget and was widely perceived as financially risky. Titanic surpassed that figure, increasing industry scrutiny in later year. Films such as Avatar 2009, also directed by James Cameron, would exceed Titanic production costs due to advanced performance capture system and large-scale digital world building. However, in 1997, allocating over $200 million to a non-franchise romantic epic was considered unusually bold. In contemporary term, blockbuster budget frequently reach or succeed to 50 to $300 million, particularly in superhero or fantasy franchise. Adjusted for inflation, Titanic budget would still rank among the most expensive film ever made. At the time, however, its financial scale represented a major expansion of studio risk tolerance. The production budget risked a strategic allocation toward realism, engineering, and immersive spectacle rather than dependence on pre-existing intellectual property. Overall, the financial structure of Titanic illustrates how production priorities shape cost per distribution. The majority of resources were directed towards set construction, practical effect, visual innovation, logistical execution. In its historical context, the film stands as a significant case study in high risk, high investment filmmaking that redefined expectation for large scale historical drama. Titanic 1997 occupies a unique position in cinematic genre because it blends multiple traditions into a unified narrative experience. At its core, the film functions as a romantic drama, but it is equally grounded in historical reconstruction and large-scale disaster storytelling. This combination shapes not only the structure of the narrative but also the overall mood and emotional rhythm of the film. As a romance, the story centers on intimacy, longing, and emotional transformation. The early portion of the film move at a deliberate pace, allowing the audience to observe the social constraints surrounding the main characters. The atmosphere during this section feels elegant, restrained, and almost dreamlike. The ship itself is presented as a floating world of luxury and rigid glass division. The camera glides through ornate hallway and expansive decks, reinforcing a sense of grandeur and possibility. The tone is reflective and gently hopeful, inviting viewer to immerse themselves in the character's personal struggle before the central conflict emerges. The historical dimension contribute a sense of inevitability. Even for viewers unfamiliar with the detailed history, the knowledge that the voyage ends in tragedy create underlying tension. This awareness shapes the mood from the beginning. Beneath the romantic development lies a subtitle sense of foreboding. The pacing in the first half of the film is intentional and patient, establishing emotional investment while carefully building character, relationship, and social context. The film ensures that when the disaster unfolds, the audience feel personal loss rather than distant observation. When the genre shifts toward disaster drama, the mood transforms dramatically, the pacing accelerates, and the atmosphere becomes chaotic and urgent. The tone moves from warmth and elegance to cold dispression. Water, darkness, and confined spacing dominate the visual language. The stylistic choices emphasize realism, practical effect, tilting set, and immersive sound design create a sense of physical danger. The editing becomes faster and more fragmented, mirroring the panic spreading through the ship. This contrast between the mere first half and the intense second half is central to the film's emotional design. Atmosphere play a critical role throughout. Earlier scenes are filled with warm lighting, golden hues, and sweeping musical themes that emphasize romance and wonder. As the disaster unfolds, the color palette shifts toward deep blues and harsh whites. The night sky and freezing ocean create visual isolation. The soundscape also change. Elegant or restriction gives way to alarm, rushing water, and cries for help. This stylistic transition reinforces the tonal shift without requiring explicit exposition. The mood is not purely tragic, however, it is layered with themes of courage and sacrifice and fleeting beauty. Even in moments of chores, the film pauses to highlight human dignity and emotional connection. These pauses slow the pacing briefly, allowing the audience to absorb the weight of events. These rhythmic variations prevent the disaster sequence from becoming overwhelming spectacle. Instead, they remain emotionally grounded. Stylistically, the film balances classical storytelling with technical ambition. The cinematography flavor favors sweeping crane shoot and fluid camera movement in the early acts, enhancing the sense of scale and elegance. Later, handheld tighter framing technique create immediacy. This visual evaluation mirrors the narrative art. The score also supports the tonal progression, beginning the romantic theme and gradually incorporating more sober, restrained musical cues. Overall, the genre blending defines the film's mood. It begins at an intimate romantic drama set against a grand historical backdrop and gradually transform into a survival epic. The atmosphere shifts from hopeful and luminous to tense and mournful. Through deliberate pacing, contrasting tone, carefully controlled stylistic changes, the film maintains emotional coherence while navigating multiple genres. This careful orchestra traction of mood and genre is one reason the film continued to resonate with audience decade after its release. Before watching Titanic 1997, audience expectations tend to form long before the opening scene begins. The film carries a cultural reputation that influences how different viewers group approach it. Expectations vary depending on age, background, familiarity with historical event and genre preferences, but nearly all viewers arrive with some preconceived idea of what they are about to experience. From a demographic perspective, younger viewers often approach the film differently than older audience. Those who grew up hearing about its massive success may expect a grand, emotionally intense love story. For many young viewers, the film is introduced through clips, references in popular culture, or discussion about its iconic scene. As a result, they often anticipate a sweeping romance first and a historical tragedy second. In contrast, older viewers, particularly those familiar with the historical sinking of the RMS Titanic, may enter with an expectation of a serious disaster drama grounded in historical realism. From them, the romance might feel secondary to the recreation of the event itself. Viewers' demographic also shape emotional expectation. Audience who favor character-driven storytelling may expect strong emotional arc, memorable dialogue, and transformative character journey. Romance enthusiasts often anticipate a passionate but tragic love story that emphasizes themes of sacrifice and devotion. Meanwhile, fans of historical drama might expect careful attention to period details, social class division, and authentic depiction of early 20th century society. Disaster film fans, on the other hand, may anticipate large scale spectre, rising tension, and dramatic survival sequence. Genre preferences play a significant role in shaping anticipation. Those who play epic romance may expect emotional intensity, lush cinematography, and a memorable musical score. They may prepare themselves for a story centered on intimacy and personal transformation. Viewers drawn to disaster film might expect escalating suspense, technical realism, and visually impressive sequence involve the ship sinking. Because the film blends genre, audience often enter with layered expectations, sometimes unsure which aspect will dominate. Anticipated theme also guide audience mindset. Many viewers expect theme of love transcending social boundaries, particularly because the film is widely recognized for its portrayal of class difference between its same character. These expectations shape how viewers interrupt early scenes looking for tension between wealth and poverty, privilege and freedom. Others may anticipate broader themes of human ambition and technological overconfidence, knowing that the Titanic was historically considered unsinkable. These thematic expectations create a subtitle sense of inevitability even before the narrative confirms it. Culture reputation further amplify expectations because the film achieved extraordinary commercial success and won multiple major awards. Audience often assume a high level of production quality. There is an expectation of grand scale, large set, detailed costume, and immersive environment. Viewers may also anticipate emotionally powerful performance, especially given the film's long-standing recognition in popular culture. This reputation can raise standards. Some viewers approach the film expecting to be deeply moved, while others approach with skepticism, wondering whether it can truly live up to its legendary status. The pacing expectation is another important factor. Some viewers anticipate a slow burning first half that develops romance and character relationship before transitioning into intense disaster sequence. Others, particularly those unfamiliar with the structure, may expect the tragedy to begin early. Audience patience can therefore influence initial reaction. Viewers who appreciate gradual narrative build up often embrace the extended character development, while those expecting immediate action may need time to adjust to the film's deliberate rhythm. Emotional preparedness also vary because the story is widely known to end in tragedy. Audience often enter with a sense of forewarning. These knowledges shape their emotional engagement. Some prepare themselves for heartbreak, expecting a tearful conclusion. Others focus on the historical outcome rather than personal storyline, anticipating a sobering reflection on loss and human vulnerability. Audience expectation before watching Titanic 1997 are shaped by demographic background, genre preferences, cultural reputation, and awareness of historical context. Romance fan anticipate emotional depth, disaster enthusiastic expect large scale spectacle, and history oriented viewers look for authenticity. The film reputation for grandeur and tragedy further elevate expectation. These varied anticipations create a unique viewing environment in which audience arrive prepared for both intimacy and catastrophe, setting the stage for deeply layered cinematic experience. Titanic 1997 is designed for a bold but clearly defined audience, blending emotional storytelling with large scale spectacle in a way that appeal to multiple viewer groups. While the film achieved worldwide popularity across generations, its structure, theme, and stylistic choices suggest that it is primarily made for viewers who appreciate emotionally driven narrative combined with historical and dramatic intensity. In terms of age group, the film is generally best suited for teenagers and adults rather than very young children. The romantic storyline, complex emotional theme, and lengthy runtime require a certain level of maturity and patience. Adolescent and young adults often connect deeply with the central love story, particularly the theme of identity, independence, and defiance of social expectation. The emotional intensity of first love, personal transformation, and sacrifice resonates strongly with viewers navigating similar emotional experience in their own life. At the same time, adult audience may engage more deeply with the historical context, class commentary, and broader reflection on ambition and human vulnerability. The film 3-hour runtime also signals its intended audience, viewers who enjoy immersive storytelling and are willing to invest time in gradual narrative development and are more likely to appreciate its pacing. The first half unfolds deliberately, focusing on character relationship and social structure before transitioning into the disaster sequence. The structure reward patience and emotional activeness rather than viewers seeking immediate action. As a result, the target audience include those who prefer epic storytelling over fast-paced, purely action-driven films. Now we discuss about the interest. The film strongly appeal to viewers who enjoy romantic drama. At its core, the narrative revolve around emotional connection, sacrifice, and transformative power of love. Audience drawn to story about relationship, personal growth, and emotional depth are central to its target demographic. The romance is not secondary to its spectacle; it is the emotional anchor that drives the entire experience. Viewer who prioritize character development and intimate storytelling often find this aspect especially compelling. However, the film also targets viewers interested in historical setting and period detail. The recreation of the early 20th century society in glass division, fashion, and architecture add a layer of authenticity that attract audience fascinated by history. The meticulous production design and attention to social hierarchy often offer more than background decoration. They shape the narrative tension and emotional sake for viewers who appreciate historically inspired drama. The film provides both visual richness and thematic substance. Genre preferences play a significant role in defining the film audience. Fan of epic cinema, stories told on a grand scale with sweeping visuals and emotional intensity are especially well suited to this film. The combination of romance, historical drama, and disaster element create a layered genre experience. Viewers who enjoy disaster films are drawn to the second half, escalating tension while survival struggle and large scale practical effect. Meanwhile, romance enthusiasts are engaged by the emotional journey that unfold in the first half. Because the film successfully merges these genres, its target audience include individuals who appreciate hybrid storytelling rather than narrowly defined categories. And the emotional tone also influences its audience profile. This is not a light-hearted or purely escapist film. It contains moments of joy and beauty, but it is ultimately lead to tragedy. Viewers who are comfortably with emotional, intense narrative and reflective ending are more likely to appreciate the film's impact. Those seeking purely comedic or uplifting entertainment may find the tone too heavy. The film asks its audience to confront themes of molarity, inequality, and loss, making it more appealing to viewers who value meaningful emotional experience. Additionally, the film attracts audience who appreciate cinematic craftsmanship, large-scale sets, detailed costume, and carefully staged sequence reflect a production style that reward visual attention. Viewers interested in filmmaking technique, practical effect, and immersive world building often find the technical execution compelling. It is primarily made for teenagers and adults who enjoy emotionally driven storytelling, epic scale, and historical atmosphere. It appeals strongly to fans of romance, historical drama, and disaster cinema, particularly those who appreciate layered narrative that combine intimacy with spectacle. While its reach extends across demographics, its ideal viewer is someone willing to invest emotionally and patiently in a story that balances love, tragedy, and grand cinematic ambition. It promises an emotional experience that is immersive, layered, and ultimately transformative. From the opening scene, the film establishes a reflective and almost melancholic mood, signaling to the audience that will not be a simple love story or a straightforward disaster narrative. Instead, it offers a carefully structured emotional journey that builds gradually, deepens steadily, and culminates in powerful emotional release. The mood in the early portion of the film is romantic and atmospheric. There is a sense of elegance and wonder as the ship sets sail, accompanied by sweeping visual and a layered musical score. The tone feels hopeful and intimate, encouraging viewer to connect with the characters on a personal level. The romantic storyline introduces feeling of excitement, vulnerability, and discovery as the central relationship develops. The audience experience joy, anticipation, and emotional warmth. This emotional mood is essential because it creates a foundation of attachment. Without this emotional investment, the later tragedy would not resonate deeply. As the narrative progresses, the mood gradually shifts. Subtitle signs of tension emerge, creating an undercurrent of unease. The audience is aware, either through historical knowledge or narrative foreshadowing, that the voyage will not end safely. This awareness introduces a quiet sense of inevitability. The film carefully balances hope with impending loss, allowing viewer to experience both emotional uplift and creeping dread. Simultaneously, the result is a layered emotional tone that keeps viewers engaged on multiple levels. The theme of love and freedom play a central role in shaping the emotional experience. The romance is not portrayed as superficial or fleeting. It represents personal transformation and self-discovery. The film invites viewers to feel the exhilaration of breaking social constraint and embracing authentic identity. For much of the first half, the intended emotional impact is inspiration and connection. The audience is encouraged to believe in the possibility of profound, life changing love. However, the film's emotional promise extends beyond romance. As the disaster unfolds, the mood becomes urgent, chaotic, and deeply tragic. The pacing accelerates and the tone shifts dramatically from warmth to desperation. Fear and uncertainty dominate the screen. The intended emotional impact here is intensity and immersion. Viewers are meant to feel the rising panic, the confusion and fragility of human life. The visual and auditory element, cold ocean water, darkened corridors, and the sound of disaster work together to create a visceral reaction. The themes of sacrifice and human dignity become central during the final act. Amid the chaos, moment of courage and compensation stand out. These scenes are designed to evoke admiration and sorrow simultaneously. The film does not present tragedy as meaningless. Instead, it emphasizes the depth of human connection, even in the face of inevitable loss. The intended emotional outcome is catharsis. By guiding the audience through fear, heartbreak, and acceptance, the film allows for a powerful emotional release. The conclusion carries a reflective and bittersweet tone. Grief is balanced with a sense of remembrance and continuity. The emotional journey ends not slowly in disappear but in a quiet affirmation of love's enduring impact. This mixture of sorrow and transcendence is deliberate. The film aimed to leave viewers deeply moved rather than simply saddened. The final emotional state is contemplative, encouraging reflection on theme of polarity, memory, and fleeting nature of life. Overall, it promises an emotional experience that moves through multiple stages: wonder, romance, tension, terror, heartbreak, and ultimately catharsis. Its mood evolves from luminous hope to sober reflection. Its theme, love, class, division, ambition, sacrifice, and loss, are woven together to create a profound intended impact. The film seeks not only to entertain but to leave a lasting emotional impression. Viewers are invited to feel deeply, to confront vulnerability, and to emerge from the experience with a renewed awareness of both the beauty and fragility of human connection. At its core, Titanic 1997 is built around a simple yet profound story concept: the conclusion between human aspiration and human vulnerability. Beneath its historical setting and romance narrative lies an abstract exploration of impermanence of love, status, ambition, and even life itself. The film's central idea is not merely about a ship sinking, but about how individuals confront freedom, morality, and meaning when faced with force beyond their control. One of the primary themes shaping the story is the tension between social structure and personal identity. The film presents a world rigidly divided by class, expectation, and inherited privilege. Within the structured environment, the characters are defined by rules that did not necessarily choose. The story concept revolves around breaking these boundaries. The romantic relationship at the center of the narrative functions symbolically as an act of rebellion against confinement, whether social, emotional, or existential. In abstract terms, the film suggests that authentic living required courage to transcend imposed limitation. Another essential theme is the illusion of preeminence. The Titanic itself represents technological triumph and human confidence. It embodies the belief that progress and wealth can secure control over nature and destiny. The ships becomes a metaphor for certainty, solid, grand, seemingly indestructible. The disaster dismantles that illusion. The film core message suggests that no system, no structure, and no achievement is immune to fragility. In this way, the sinking operates not just as a historical event but as a symbolic rupture in human certainty. Love, as presented in the narrative, functions as both emotional anchor and philosophical statement. The relationship at the center of the story is not simply romantic fulfillment, it represents awakening. The theme of transformation run parallel to the disaster itself. Just as the physical world of the ship collapses, the internal world of the protagonist expands. The film proposes that meaningful change often arises from risk and vulnerability. The love story, therefore, is not an isolated subplot, it's a mechanism through which the broader message about freedom and self realization is conveyed. Molarity form another foundational theme. The inevitability of death shape the narrative structure from beginning to end. The audience is aware, at least broadly, of the tragic outcome, which create a sense of inevitability embedded within every moment of joy. This narrative design reinforces the concept that beauty and loss coexist. The film's abstract message suggests that awareness of impermanence intensify emotional experience. Moments become more valuable precisely because they are temporary. The story also explores the idea of choice under pressure. When disasters strike, characters are forced to reveal their priorities and value. In calm conditions, social hierarchy dominate behavior. Under threat, however, moral character become more visible. The film subtitly question what define worth, wealth, status, or integrity through contrasting response to crisis. It presents a broader commentary on human nature. The core idea implies that adversity strips away superficial identity, exposing fundamental truth about courage, selfishness, compassion, and sacrifice. Sacrifice is central to film's message. The narrative culminates in act of selflessness that redefine the meaning of love and dignity. In abstract terms, sacrifice becomes the ultimate expression of freedom, the choice to value another life above one's own comfort or survival. This elevates the story beyond romance into philosophical territory. The film suggests that the most enduring legacies are not material achievement but emotional imprint left on other. Memory and storytelling frame the narrative conceptually. The story unfolds as a recollection, emphasizes that event live on through memory. This structural choice reinforces the idea that experience gain meaning through remembrance. The ship may recycle, lives may be lost by stories persist. The act of remembering become an act of preservation. The core message here is that human connection transcends physical destruction. Emotional truth survive where material structures fail. The film abstract foundation can therefore be understood as an exploration of contrast, preeminence versus fragility, control versus chaos, confinement versus liberation, and wealth versus authenticity. Each of these dualities shape the narrative conceptual architecture. Disaster is not simply an endpoint, it is a catalyst that reveals deeper philosophical tension. Ultimately, the core idea of Titanic is about awakening in the face of impermanence. It argues that the film values lies not in security or status but in connection, courage, and the willingness to embrace vulnerability. Through its theme of love, molarity, transformation, and sacrifice, the story delivers a message that resonates beyond its historical setting. It invites viewers to reflect on what truly endure when everything else falls away. The central conflict of Titanic operates on multiple layers, combining personal struggle, social pressure, and existential threat into one unified tension. Rather than focusing on isolated incident. The story is driven by a deep and persistent clash between freedom and control, love and obligation, survival and sacrifice. At its heart, the film explores what happens when individuals are forced to confront the limits imposed on him by society, by circumstances, and by morality itself. One of the primary moral dilemmas embedded in the narrative involve identity versus expectation. The characters are positioned within rigid social framework that dedicate behavior, relationship, and future path. The conflict emerges when personal desires challenges those external definitions. The tension is not merely romantic, it is philosophical. Should one conform to social duty for security and acceptance, or risk everything to pursue authenticity? This dilemma form a quiet but powerful undercurrent through the story. Their struggle to define oneself outside inherited role becomes an internal battle as intense as any external crisis. Another significant layer of conflict revolves around power and inequality. The story presents a structured world divided by wealth and status. Within that hierarchy lies a moral tension about privilege and worth. The central conflict question where social rank determine value or whether character transcend class boundary. This creates a continuous strain between appearance and substance. His character often must decide whether to protect their position or challenge the system that sustained it. The tension arises only not from emotional attachment but from the risk of social consequence. So, survival introduces a more universal and existential challenge. When security dissolves, the narrative shifts toward premenal concern. The moral dilemma becomes stark: self preservation versus companion. In moment of crisis, characters face choices that test their integrity. The central conflict deepens as individuals weigh personal safety against responsibility toward others. These decisions are not presented as simple or comfortable. They are shaped by fear, urgency, and uncertainty. The tension stems from the unpredictability of human behavior under pressure. Love functions as both catalyst and complication within this conflict. Emotional attachment intensify every choice. The presence of deep connection raises the stake of each moral decision. Sacrifices become convincible only because love exists, yet love also creates vulnerability. The conflict therefore extend into the emotional realm where trust may overcome doubt and courage must overcome fear. The tension between emotional longing and practical survival create a layer of dynamic that drive the narrative toward another abstract conflict concern control versus inevitability. The world of the story begins in an atmosphere of confidence. Certainty structure appears solid, system appear reliable, and authority appear unquestioned. Beneath the surface lies fragility. The central tension rises from the illusion that human ambition can master unpredictability. As that illusion erodes, characters are forced to confront forces beyond their influence. This shift illusion erode, characters are forced to confront forces beyond their influence. This shift introduces existential conflict, the recognition that not everything can be managed or predicted. The struggle becomes one of acceptance versus denial. The narrative also engages with the tension between individual choice and collective consequence. Personal decisions ripple outward, affecting others in unforeseen way. The moral weight of action becomes heavier as circumstances grow more severe. Character must navigate not only their own desire but also the broader implication of these desires. The conflict thus operates on both intimate and communal level. Individual courage or cowardice become magnified in a shared crisis. Time itself functions as a source of tension. The awareness of limitation, where social or mortal create urgency. The characters are not only confronting obstacle but racing against diminishing opportunity. The awareness heighten emotional intensity. Every hesitation carries consequence and every decision feels irreversible. The central conflict becomes not simply about what to do but about what to act. Ultimately, the core tension of Titanic lie in the confrontation between human vulnerability and human choice. The film asks where dignity can survive chaos, where love can endure uncertainty, and whether authenticity is worth and the cost of defiance. The moral dilemmas are complex and layered. Loyalty versus truth, confront versus risk, and survival versus sacrifice. The challenge faced by the character are both external and internal, forcing them to examine their deepest values. In abstract terms, the central conflict is the struggle to maintain morally and emotionally intact when the structure provides subtly begin to collapse. It is about the test of character under pressure and the search for meaning in the face of fragility. Through its layered tension, the story transforms a historical backdrop into a timeless exploration of human choice and consequence. This film explores a wide range of themes that operate simultaneously on ethical exploration and cultural level. Beneath its romantic and historical framework lie a layered examination of human behavior, social structure, and moral choice. The film does not simply tell a story of love and loss; it uses its narrative to raise deeper questions about identity, privilege, sacrifice, and the meaning of dignity in the face of catastrophe. One of the most prominent themes is social inequality. The story highlights the rigid class division embedded where early 20th century society wealth and status determine opportunity, freedom, and even perceived worth. This culture epic is not presented abstractly to shape the character, emotional experience, and moral choices. The ethical question at the center of the theme is whether inherited privilege justifies authority and control over other. The narrative challenged the idea that social position equal moral superiority. Instead, it suggests that character, compensation, and courage are the true measure of love. Value closely related to class is the theme of freedom versus confinement. Character navigate expectation imposed by family, culture, and economic system. Emotional arc are driven by the desire to escape limitation and assert autonomy. The film raises ethical question about obligation. How much does an individual own to tradition or family expectation? Is security worth sacrificing authenticity? These questions resonate beyond the historical setting, touching on universal struggle between duty and self-realization. The emotional journey of breaking free from constraint becomes symbolic of a broader human need for self-definition. Love is another central theme, but it is presented as transformative rather than merely romantic. The emotional arc of love in the film is tied to growth, courage, and awakening. Love challenges fear and reshape priorities, yet it also introduces vulnerability. The ethical question embedded within its theme concern sacrifice. When the love deepens, the value of another person's life becomes intertwined with one's own. The story asks whether true love requires selflessness, and if so, how fair that selflessness should exist. The emotional intensity of the relationship amplifies the moral complexity of survival and choice. Molarity and impermanence from a philosophical theme that underline the entire narrative. The awareness that life is fragile shape the tone and structure of the story. The ethical dimension emerges when character confront their limited time How should one act when the future is uncertain? What defines a life well lived? The film suggests that comment of the connection and integrity carry greater weight than material accumulation. Culturally, this theme reflects anxiety about modernity and technological progress, the belief that advancement can protect humanity from vulnerability. The theme of human ambition is also significant. The setting represents confidence in technological innovation and economic power. The cultural topic here involves society trust in progress and authenticity. The ethical question becomes whether confidence can cross into arrogance. The narrative implies that over reliance on system and status can offshore deeper truth about unpredictability and human limitation. This theme resonates as a critique of blind faith in control, reminding viewer that advancement does not risk. Courage and coldness appear on as contrasting emotional arc throughout the film. In moment of crisis, characters reveal their priorities. Some choose compassion and responsibility, while others retreat into self-preservation. These responses raise ethical questions about moral duty during sheer hardship. Is survival the highest good, or does dignity require sacrifice? The story does not present simple question. Instead, it portrays a spectrum of human reaction. This nose approach reinforces the complexity of ethical behavior under pressure. Moral memory and legacy form another thematic layer. The narrative framework emphasizes remembrance as a mean of preserving meaning. Culture, identity, and personal history are intertwined, and with storytelling, the emotional arc of reflection suggests that event gains significance through the way they are remembered. The ethical dimension here involves honoring truth and experience. Memory become an act of respect for those who endured loss, transforming tragedy into continuity. Gender rules also emerge as a subtextual cultural topic. Expectations placed on women and men influence character decision and opportunities. The film raises question about autonomy, power dynamic, suggesting a movement toward to personal agency. Ultimately, this film explores themes that extend far beyond its historical context. Ethical question about class, sacrifice, ambition, and dignity intervene with emotional arc of love, fear, and transformation. Cultural topics such as inequality, gender expectation, and technological fate deepen the narrative relevance. Through its layered theme, the film invites viewer to reflect on what endure when such status and uncertainty dissolve. It suggests that integrity, compassion, and human connection from the true legacy of any life, even in the shadow of inevitable loss. Titanic 1997 established emotional connection with viewers by carefully shaping mood, layering universal theme, and guiding the audience through a deeply immersive experience. Its emotional impact does not rely solely on spectacle or tragedy. Instead, it builds attachment gradually, allowing viewers to feel investment long before the central crisis unfold. This deliberate structure create a bond between audience and story that define every later development. The mood in the opening stage play a crucial role in forming this connection. The atmosphere feel reflective and almost intimate, encouraging viewer to settle into the world of the narrative. The pacing is mere allows space for emotional familiarity rather than overwhelming the audience with immediate attention. The film invite observation and empathy. Warm lighting, elegant environment, and moment of quiet character interaction foster a sense of closeness. This calm introduction allow viewers to lower their deficiencies and emotionally align with the characters. Themes of longing and self-discovery further deepen this connection. Many viewers relate to desire for freedom, acceptance, and personal authenticity. The story presents character who struggle against expectation and social constraint, a theme that resonates across generations and culture. Audience often see reflection of their own emotional journey in their struggles. The connection is not limited to the romantic element, it extends to the broader theme of wanting more than life than what circumstances appear to allow. This universal longing becomes a bridge between viewers and narrative. The emotional experience intensifies because the film gradually shifts its mood from hope to tension. As the viewer grow attached to the character and their dream, a sense of vulnerability emerges. The awareness that the story moves toward inevitable tragedy creates layered emotional engagement. The audience experience joy and anxiety simultaneously. The dual emotional state strengthens connection because it mirrors real life experience where happiness and uncertainty often coexist. Another factor in emotional connection is the film focus on human detail with a large scale event. Even as the setting expands into moment of chaos, the narrative repeatedly return to individual perspective. Close framing, expressive performance, and moment of silence draw attention to personal emotion rather than abstract disaster. Viewers do not feel like distant observation of history; they feel present with an intimate moment of fear, hope, and love. This focus on individual experience transforms spectacle into something personal. The theme of love and sacrifice create particularly strong emotional resonance. Love is portrayed as transformative and empowering, offering character a sense of identity and purpose for viewers. This theme tap into universal emotional memory moment of connection that feel defining or life changing. When sacrifice become intervened with love, the emotional weight intensifies. The viewer is not only witnessing a tragic outcome but experiencing the depth of devotion that give that outcome. This layering of affection and loss produce catharsis, allowing audience to release accumulated emotion. The mood shift during the first film, later stages enhance emotional immersion. A urgency replace calm. The sensory experience become more immediate. Sound design, visual darkness, and fantasy of pacing create emotion tensional that feel physical. Viewers often report feeling anxiety or breathlessness during their sequence. This visceral response strengthens the emotional bond because it transfers passive viewing into active sensation. The experience becomes embodied rather than merely observed. Reflection also play a role in sustaining emotional connection. The story is framed through memory, which introduce themes of remembrance and legacy. This structure invites viewer to consider not only what happened but what endured. The emotional experience therefore extends beyond immediate sorrow. It revolves into contemplation about how love and courage persist in memory. This reflective mood softens the sharpness of tragedy and replacing it with bittersweet acceptance. The overall viewer experience is shaped by contrast. The film moved from warmth to cool, from intimacy to chaos, from hope to grief. These contrasts heighten emotional response because they prevent monotony. Joy feels brighter when paired with impending loss. Fear feels sharper when preceded by comfort. The deliberate pacing allows viewer to process each stage is building cumulative impact rather than relying on sudden shock. Ultimately, the emotional connection arises from the film's ability to align universal themes with carefully controlled mood. By exploring freedom, love, vulnerability, and molarity, it touches on experience shared across cultures and generations. The viewer is guided through a spectrum of emotion, anticipation, tenderness, tension, heartbreak, and reflection. The journey leaves a lasting impression because it mirrors the complexity of real human experience. Rather than offering simple entertainment, the film provides an emotional passage that invites empathy, introspection, enduring memory. In Titanic 1997, the emotional and thematic strength of the film rests largely on its two central figures, Dawson and Rose Dewitt. Bukater. As a reviewer, it is clear that these characters are crafted not only as romantic lead but as symbolic archetypes representing freedom and confinement, spontaneity and structure, risk and security. The responsibility and emotional arc give the film its lasting impact. Jack Dawson functions as the archetype of the free spirit. He represents artistic sensitivity, optimism, and emotional authenticity. His personality traits include confidence without arrogance, humor without cruelty, and courage without calculation. He lives in the present moment, valuing experience over material wealth. From a viewer's perspective, Jack's appeal lies in his simplicity and sincerity. He is not complicated by social ambition or internal moral conflict. Instead, he embodies clarity of purpose. His worldview challenged the rigid hierarchy surrounded him through Jack. The film communities our philosophy that life worth is measured by depth of experience rather than financial success. At the same time, Jack is not portrayed as invincible or purely symbolic. His emotional openness makes him vulnerable. He believes in people quickly and deeply, which enhances the romantic intensity of the story. His archetype, the liberator, exists not only to inspire but to catalyze transformation in others. As a character, he represents movement, change, and possibility. In reviewer term, Jack anchored the film theme of personal freedom. Rose Dewitt Bukater, by contrast, being as the archetype of the constrained individual. She is introduced with an environment defined by wealth, expectation, and social performance. Her personality trait initially include restraint, frustration, intelligence, and emotional isolation. She is surrounded by luxury yet feel imprisoned by obligation. From a critical standpoint, Rose's complexity is one of the film's strongest elements. She is not merely a romantic interest, she is the emotional center of the narrative. Rose Mark is transformative over the course of the story. She shifts from passive compliance to active self definition. Her internal conflict between duty and desire create the film's central emotional tension. As a reviewer, one can observe that her development feels gradual and on. She does not change instantly, rather her growth unfolds through experience and choice. Their progression make her journey relatable. Rose embodies the universal struggle to calm or one ownership of one's life in the face of external control. Together, Jack Dawson and Rose Dewitt Bukater operate as complementary forces. Jack symbolizes liberation already realized. Rose symbolizes liberation in progress. Their dynamic is built on contrast, class differences, worldwide emotional experience, but it evolve into mutual influence. Jack offers Rose a glimpse of authenticity and courage, while Rose provides Jack with emotional grounding and depth. Their relationship is not only romantic but philosophical, illustrating the film's belief in connection as a transformative force. Beyond the protagonist's sporting character also reinforces the thematic structure. Carl Hockley represents entitlement and possessiveness, embodying the darker side of wealth and control. His personality trait, pride, insecurity, mask as dominance and obsession with status, serve as obstacle to emotional freedom. Meanwhile, figures such as Molly Brown provide warmth and moral clarity, representing compassion within privilege. From a reviewer perspective, the success of Titanic depends heavily on how effectively these characters embody broader themes. Jack and Rose are not subtitle archetype, but they are emotionally accessible. Their personalities are crafted to reflect universal desire, freedom, love, dignity, and purpose. The audience connect not simply because of circumstances but because of recognizable human longing. Ultimately, the character work in Titanic elevate the film beyond spectacle. Jack Dawson and Rose Dewitt Bukater function as both individual and symbolic, carrying the story emotional and thematic way. Their arc, one steady in principle, the other evolving and awakening, create powerful narrative symmetry. It is through their personality, choice, and transformation that the film achieves its enduring resonance. The emotional strength of Titanic depends heavily on the performance of its lead actor and supporting. When the film is widely recognized for its performance and visual ambition, it is the authenticity of the performance that gives the story its lasting emotional power. Leonardo DiCaprio delivers a performance filled with warmth, charm, and emotional openness. He portrays Jack as optimistic and fearless, yet sensitive and deeply human. DiCaprio brings natural ease to the role, making Jack's spontaneity feel genuine rather than exaggerated. His expression, eyes, and relaxed body language create immediate likability. Emotionally, he balances playfulness with sincerity, especially in intimate moments. This combination makes his character believable and relatable. His performance never feels forced; instead, it feels lived in and heartfelt. Kate Winslet provide one of the film's most layered performance. At the beginning, when Winslet play Rose with restraint and visible inner tension, her posture, tone of voice, and control expression communicate a woman trapped by expectation. As the story progresses, he gradually soften and open emotionally. This transformation feels organic because Winslet allowed it to unfold naturally. Her emotional depth is especially powerful in quiet scenes where subtitle facial expression convey complex feeling. Winslet performance anchor the emotional arc of the film, making Rose's journey deeply moving. The chemistry between Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet is one of the film's greatest strengths. Their interaction feels spontaneous and genuine. They share natural timing, comfortable eye contact, and emotional rhythm. Their connection makes the romance convincing, which is crucial because the entire emotional impact of the film depends on the audience believing in their bond. Billy Zane portray the controlling and privileged finance with control intensity rather than playing the character as overly dramatic. Zane brings calculated arrogance and quiet menace. His performance adds tension to the narrative, creating emotional conflict without overshadowing the leads. Kathy Bates bring warmth and strength to the film. Her performance feels natural and grounded. She offers emotional balances representing kindness and moral clarity with a rigid social structure. Bates' presence add heart to the supporting ensemble. Frances Fisher as Rose's mother delivered a performance defined by social anxiety and pressure. She portrays a woman driven by fear of losing status, adding complexity to the theme of societal expectation. Victor Garber played the ship designer with quiet dignity and subtitle sorrow. His restrained performance add emotional realism, especially in moment of realization and reflection. Jonathan Haddy and Bernard Hill contribute layered performance that reflect authority, responsibility, and vulnerability. Their portrayal they help humanize figure of leadership during crisis. Together, the lead actor and supporting cast create an emotionally immersive experience. The lead provide the romantic and transformative core, while the supporting performances add tension, warmth, and realism. The ensemble work ensure that the film feels not just like a grand historical spectacle but like a deeply human story driven by authentic emotion and believable relationship. This film, realism, and character depth play a crucial role in transforming the film from historical spectacle into an emotionally grounded human drama. While the scale of the production is grand, the story lasting impact depends on whether the character feel authentic. From a reviewer perspective, the film succeeds largely because it balances cinematic drama with believable emotional progression. One of the strongest aspects of realism in the film is its attention to character development. The central characters are not static figures serving a single narrative function. They evolve in response to circumstances. Their growth feels gradual rather than sudden. Emotional shifts are motivated by experience, not convenience. This measured progression gives the audience time to understand internal conflict instead of dramatic personality reversals. The film presents the incremental transformation that pacing enhance credibility. Viewers can trace how certain conservation pressure and moment of reflection contribute to change development unfold naturally, which make emotional turning point feel earned. Believability also stems from how characters reflect the social structure around them. The rigid class hierarchy is not presented abstractly, it influences behavior, language, posture, and decision making. The healthy character move and speak differently than those from modest background. This subtitle attention to social detail deepen realism. It prevents the narrative from feeling like a simplified love story detached from its historical context. The environment shapes personality, reinforcing the authenticity of motivation and conflict. Another key factor in realism is the film's emotional restraint. Characters do not constantly verbalize their feeling. Much of their emotional range is expressed through silence, facial expression, and body language. This subtly mirror real human behavior. People rarely articulate every internal struggle. Instead, emotion often surfaces indirectly. The film respects this truth. When characters do express strong emotion, it carry weight precisely, but it is not constant. The contrast between quiet movement and intense reaction enhance the sense of authenticity. The emotional range portrayed by the character is broad and layered. Joy, fear, hope, pride, vulnerability, and grief are all present, but they are rarely exaggerated. Even in moments of heightened drama, performance remain grounded, recognizable human responses. For example, anxiety manifests not only through shouting or panicking, but through hesitation, uncertainty, and physical tension. These details make reaction believable rather than theoretical. Character depth is further strengthened by moral ambiguity. Not every character is purely heroic or villain. Some individuals act selfishly under pressure while others reveal unexpected courage. This complexity mirrors real human psychology. In crisis, people often respond unpredictably by showing a spectrum of reaction. The film avoids reducing character to one dimensional symbol. Even secondary figures display flashes of humanity that contribute to emotional realism. The protagonist, in particularly, benefited from layer internal conflict. Their decisions are not portrayed as easy or inevitable. Instead, they reflect competing desires: security versus freedom, survival versus loyalty, self interest versus sacrifice. These internal tension add psychological depth. Viewers recognize the difficulty of these choices, which increase emotional engagement. The character feel less like narrative choice and more like individual navigating uncertain circumstances. Another aspect of realism lies in vulnerability. Figure the film allow its character to experience doubt and fear openly. They are not invincible figures immune to emotional breakdown. Their fragility enhances relatability. Audience connect more deeply when they see recognizable human weakness. The portrayal of fear, in particular, avoid melodrama. It often appears in subtitle way through troubling hand, unsteady voice, or searching glance. Importantly, the film integrates character depth into the larger historical setting without losing intimacy. Despite the grand scale, personal story remains central. The audience never feel detached from individual experience. This balance between the epic backdrop and human focus, restrained realism, the character's emotional live remain and the priority, preventing the spectacle from overshadowing depth. Overall, the Titanic achieved realism through careful character development, social authenticity, and a wide emotional range grounded in subtitle performance. The depth of its character allows viewers to believe in their motivation and transformation rather than relying solely on dramatic circumstances. The film built credibility through gradual growth, moral complexity, and human vulnerability. This commitment to believability ensured that the story resonated not only as historical tragedy but as a profoundly human experience. Titanic was produced with a budget that at the time was considered unprecedented for a feature film. Estimates generally place a production cost in the range of $200 million, although some industry reports suggest that the final figure may have risen slightly above that due to delay and technical challenges. In the mid 1990s, this positioned the film as one of the most expensive projects ever undertaken by major studios, such as high financial commitment reflected both at the scale of the story and the mission of its execution. A substantial portion of the budget was allocated large-scale set construction and physical production design rather than relying primarily on miniature or limited interior set. The filmmaker commissioned the near full-scale construction of the ship exterior and multiple detailed interior sections. This decision significantly increased material, labor, and logistical costs. The ship was built in large water tank facility, allowing for realistic movement and control flooding sequence. The infrastructure required to support such a built including hydraulic system, safety mechanism, and water management, representing a major financial investment. Visual effect constituted another major cost center during the late 1990s. Digital effect technology was advancing rapidly but remained expensive and time intensive. The production integrated practical effect with emerging computer generated imagery to depict large crowd, wide ocean vistas, and complex environmental stimulation. This hybrid approach required extensive coordination between practical effect team and digital artists. The need to blend real footage seamlessly with CGI increased post production time and consequently expenses. Talent cost also form a notable through proportionally smaller segment of the overall budget compared to the technical expenditure. When the lead actor were not yet at the peak of their later earning power, compensation for principal cast members, supporting actor, and a large ensemble still represented a significant outlay. In addition, the production implied thousands of extras and crew members, particularly for large-scale deck scene and evacuation sequence. The extended shooting schedule amplified payroll cost across department. Location logistics did future financial complexity. Although much of the film was shot on constructed set, the production also required ocean-based and coastal filming, which typically entail higher transportation, insurance, and safety expenses. Weather-related delay and technical challenges repeatedly extended the production timeline, increasing cost beyond initial projections. Such overruns are not uncommon in large-scale production, but given the already substantial base budget, even incremental increase translated into millions of additional dollars. When compared to the similar large-scale film of its era, the budget stand out. For example, Waterworld, another mid 1990s production known for its high expenses, had a reported budget in a comparable range and was widely discussed as financially risky. However, many historical epic and disaster films of previous decades operated at significantly lower cost level and adjusted for their time. The financial scope of Titanic therefore mark a turning point in how studios approach event filmmaking. demonstrating a willingness to invest heavily in spectral and technical innovation. It is also useful to distinguish between production budget and total financial expenditure. Marketing and distribution costs, though separate from the production budget itself, likely added tens of millions more to the overall investment. Global promotional campaigns, international premium and wide theatrical distribution strategies expanded the film reach but also increased financial stake. From an analytical standpoint, the allocation of resource reveal a strategic emphasis on immersive realism and large-scale visual effect rather than rely solely on star power. Funds were directed toward infrastructure, technology, and environment building to create a cinematic experience that would not be easily replicated through smaller scale filmmaking. The budget thus functioned not only as a financial measure but as an indicator of creative priorities. In retrospect, the film production budget illustrates the iconic risk associated with ambitious storytelling in mainstream cinema. At the time of the release, the industry observed caution whether such a costly project could recoup its investment. The scale of spending made the film a case study in high risk, high reward production strategy, regardless of its later financial performance. The production budget itself remained a defining aspect of its industrial and cinematic legacy. Titanic achieved extraordinary domestic box office success in the United States and Canada, fundamentally reshaping expectation for theatrical performance in that region. Upon its release in December 1997, the film entered a highly competitive holiday marketplace. Initial projections were cautious due to its lengthy runtime and substantial production budget, yet audience turnout steadily exceeded expectations. Rather than opening with a single record-breaking weekend followed by decline, the film demonstrated remarkable staying power, remaining at or near the top of the domestic chart for an extended period. In the North America region, the film ultimately earned over $600 million during its original theatrical run, a figure that was unprecedented at the time. It became the first film in history to surpass the $500 million mark domestically. This achievement was not driven solely by a massive opening weekend but by consistent week to week retention. Audience demand remains strong for months, with repeat viewing contributing significantly to cumulative total. The extended theatrical run, far longer than typical modern release window, allow revenue to accumulate steadily rather than peaking quickly. Seller audience trend help explain this sustained performance. First, the film attracted a broad demographic range, while the large-scale disaster film often skewed toward male audience. This film's romantic storyline draws substantial female attendance. Teenagers and young adults form a particularly enthusiastic segment, many viewers returning multiple times. At the same time, older audiences were drawn by the historical setting and dramatic scale. This cross-generational appeal expanded the domestic market beyond what is typical for a single generation production. Seasonal timing also play a key role. Released during the winter holiday period, the film benefited from school vacation and extended leisure time. However, when distinguished, its performance was not just a strong holiday debut but its ability to maintain audience interest well into the spring of 1998. Word of mouth recommendation proved influential. Positive reaction encouraged viewers who might have been skeptical about the runtime or subject matter to attend theater week or even month after release. When compared to contemporaneous blockbusters, the domestic earnings stand out clearly. For example, Jurassic Park had previously set domestic records earlier in the decade, yet its total North America earning were eventually surpassed by Titanic. Later, Avatar should challenge and ultimately exceed Titanic domestic growth. But for more than a decade, Titanic held the top position in the region. These comparisons illustrate how the film not only succeeded within its release year but redefined the upper limit of domestic performance. Another notable aspect of the domestic run was the impact of re-release. Anniversary and remaster theatrical engagement added incremental revenue over time, reinforcing its long-term popularity within North America. Although the bulk of domestic earning came from the region 1997 to 1998 run, a subsequent reissues demonstrated continued audience interest across generations. This pattern suggests that the film transitioned from a single event release to the recurring cinematic experience. The domestic box office also reflected broader industry trend in the late 90s. The rise of multiplex theater increased screen availability, allowing film with strong demand to occupy numerous screens simultaneously. Extended run become more viable when audience traffic maintains steady. Additionally, the absence of immediate streaming alternative meant theatrical exhibition was the primary avenue for experiencing large-scale spectacle, further supporting sustained attendance. From a financial perspective, the domestic earnings were especially significant given the film high production cost. Strong North America revenue provided a substantial foundation for the overall profitability before international grosses were fully told. Industry analysts at the time view its domestic success at a turning point that validated large-scale investment in epic storytelling. In summary, the domestic box office performance of Titanic was characterized by longevity, broad demographic reach, and record-setting total within the North America region. Its sustained earning over many months distinguish it from typical blockbuster pattern, establish a new benchmark for domestic theatrical achievement. Titanic delivered an international box office performance that was not only strong but historically transformative. Outside North America, the film earned well over $1 billion during its original release cycle and subsequent reissuing, making it the first film to cross the $1 billion threshold internationally. At a time when global markets were expanded but had not yet reached the scale seen in 2010. This achievement signaled a major shift in the global influence of Hollywood cinema. In Europe, the film was received with exceptional enthusiasm. Markets such as the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Italy reported sustained attendance similar to North America trend. European audience responded to the combination of large-scale production value and emotional storytelling element that translated effectively across cultural boundaries. In several countries, the film remained in theater for months, reflecting strong word-of-mouth momentum. The universal themes and historical backdrop contributed to its accessibility, minimizing cultural barriers that sometimes limit American film abroad. Asia also proved to be a critical region in the film's international success. Japan, in particular, emerged as one of the largest overseas contributors. The Japanese markets demonstrated remarkable repeat attendance, especially among younger demographic. The film romantic element and visual spectre resonated strongly within the cultural context, enriching emerging marketing in East and Southeast Asia, showing growing interest in Hollywood blockbuster, and this film became a benchmark for large scale western production in the region. Latin America and Australia similarly contributed meaningfully revenue. In many of these territories, Hollywood film already held a strong market presence, but the scale of this film performance exceeded practical expectation. Its extended theatrical run mirrored global pattern, emphasizing longevity rather than relying solely on opening weekend surge. The consistency of performance across continent underscored the film's broad international appeal. Marketing strategy played an important role in shaping international reception. Global promotional campaign emphasized the film's epic scale and technical achievement, while also highlighting its emotional tone. Trailers, press tour, and media coverage were carefully localized for different markets, ensuring cultural response. The soundtrack and promotional material were distributed internationally in coordination with theatrical release schedules, reinforcing brand recognition. The coordinated rollout helped create a sense of worldwide cinematic event rather than isolated regional premieres. Comparatively, the international earnings first surpassed those of earlier blockbusters such as Jurassic Park, who had set impressive global standard earlier in the decade. Later films like Avatar could expand the scale of international box office even further, particularly with the growth of China as a dominant market. However, in the late 1990s, Titanic global earning represented an unprecedented milestone achieved before the rapid expansion of digital distribution and modern multiplex network in some territory. Another factor influencing international revenue was the limited competition during certain release window. In multiple countries, the film faced fewer direct large-scale rivals, allowing it to maintain premium screen for extended period. That the long runtime while reducing the number of daily screening per screen did not appear to deter audience abroad. Instead, the immersive nature of the cinematic experience was often cited as part of its appeal. Re-release and an anniversary edition also contributed additional international revenue over time. Technological upgrades, including remasters and 3D versions, attracted both new viewers and returning audience in various regions. Those later engagement demonstrated the film's continued global relevance long after its original debut. Overall, the international box office performance of Titanic reflected a convergence of broad thematic accessibility, strategic marketing, and expanding global exhibition infrastructure. Its success abroad was not confined to one region but distributed widely across Europe, Asia, Latin America, and Oceania. These global dominance established a new benchmark for international earning and reshaped industry expectation regarding the overseas potential of large-scale cinematic production. Titanic achieved a worldwide gross that fundamentally altered the commercial landscape of modern cinema. Combining domestic and international box office earnings, the film surpassed $1.8 billion during its original release and later exceeded $2 billion through re-release and special edition. At the time, this total represented an unprecedented global milestone and redefined expectation for large-scale studio production. From a global audience perspective, the film demonstrated unusually broad reach. Its performance was not concentrated in a single territory but distributed across North America, Europe, Asia, and Latin America and Australia. The international component ultimately accounted for a larger share of total revenue than domestic earnings, highlighting the growing importance of overseas marketing in determining a financial film outcome. This shift reflecting an evolving industry model in which worldwide appeal became essential for maximizing return on investment. A break-even analysis required more than simply comparing production gross to gross revenue. Although the production budget was approximately 200 millions, that figure represent only the part of the financial equation. Marketing and distribution expenses must also be included. Global advertising campaign, print distribution, promotional tour, and localization effort likely added tens of millions of dollars to overall expenditure. In addition, theater retain a significant percentage of ticket sale remaining, meaning students do not receive the full gross amount. Studios receive roughly 50 to 60% of the domestic box office revenue and somewhat lower percentage from many international market. Though these percentage vary by territory and contractual agreement, therefore a film within a 200 million production budget and extensive marketing cost might need to generate several hundred million dollars in global box office receipt to totally break even. When factoring in marketing, distribution fee, and exhibitor split, many analysts estimate that a project of this scale would require worldwide grosses in the range of $400 to $500 million to cover all costs and reach profitability. In this context, Titanic performance far exceeded its break-even threshold, even accounting for distribution cost, revenue sharing, and promotional expenditure. The film moved into profitability well before completing its theatrical run. The sustained box office momentum allowed revenue to accumulate over many months, further strengthening its financial position. Unlike many high-budget films that rely heavily on a strong opening weekend, Titanic exceeded theatrical lifespan, contributed to steady cash flow. Beyond theoretical revenue, additional revenue stream enhanced its overall financial success. Home video sales, television licensing, soundtrack distribution, and later digital format generated substantial supplementary income during the late 90s, 90 and early 2000. The physical media sales were particularly lucrative, often adding significant margin beyond theoretical return. These ancillary market reinforce profitability and reduce long-term financial distributed cost also play a structural role in shaping return, while global release strategy require significant investment in film prints and international partnership. However, the scale of global demand justified these expenses by maintaining screen presence across multiple continents for extended period. The distribution strategy maximized expired revenue capture over a Titanic worldwide gloss illustrate a rare case in which extraordinary global audience engagement translated into exceptional financial return. When measured against production, marketing, and distribution expenditure, the film did not merely break even, it established a new benchmark for profitability in large scale filmmaking. Its financial trajectory demonstrated how global audience reach, diversified revenue stream, and sustained theatrical performance can collectively transform a high risk investment into an industry defining success. Titanic is widely regarded as one of the most profitable film in modern cinema history. From a financial standpoint, profitability can be evaluated by comparing total revenue against combined production, marketing, and distribution, while also considering long-term ancillary income stream. When analyzed through these lenses, the film commercial performance demonstrated an exceptionally strong return on its investment. The reported production budget was approximately $200 million, with some estimates slightly higher due to delays and technical complexity. Marketing and global distribution expenses likely added tens of millions more, bringing total upfront cost into a range that may have been approached or exceeded $300 million for a film of its era. This representing an unusually high financial commitment at the time of release. Industry observer question whether such an investment could be recovered. However, total worldwide box office earning ultimately exceeded $1.8 billion during the original theatrical scale and later surpassed $2 billion with re-release. Even accounting for theater revenue split, where exhibitor retain a portion of the ticket sales, the studio share would have been substantial. Assuming standard distribution agreement, film likely generated hundreds of millions in net theatrical revenue alone, comfortably surpassing its break-even threshold. Ancillary income further amplified profitability during the late 90s. The home video market was particularly robust. VHS and later DVD sales generated significant revenue, often contributed market that revealed or even exceeded theatrical profit for major release. Titanic became one of the best-selling home video title of its time, extended its earning potential well beyond theater. Television broadcast right and international licensing agreement added additional streams of income. Merchandising and soundtrack sales also play a role in expanding total revenue. The film music release achieve commercial success, reinforcing across market visibility and brand longevity over time. Anniversary edition, remaster release, and special theatrical engagement generated incremental box office return. These reissues require comparatively modest investment relative to the original production, meaning that much of the revenue translated into high margin profit. Return on investment can be assessed by comparing net profit to total even under conservative assumption about revenue split and marketing expense. The film cumulative earnings suggest an ROI that far exceeded typical studio expectation. Rather than simply doubling its investment, it's multiplied its several time over Few films in history have achieved such a high ratio of revenue to production cost at comparable budget level. It is also important to note that the film long-term financial stability. Many high-budget production experience strong initial revenue followed by rapid decline. In contrast, Titanic maintained cultural and commercial revenue for decades, generating ongoing income through physical media, streaming, licensing, and theoretical re-release. This extended life cycle strengthen its cumulative profitability. In conclusion, from a financial analysis perspective, Titanic was not only profitable but extraordinary so. Its revenue dramatically surpassed combined cost, ancillary income stream reinforced long-term gain, and its return on investment established it as a benchmark large in case in large-scale filmmaking economics. Titanic generated one of the most and powerful widespread audience reaction in modern cinematic history. Its reception was not limited to a specific demographic or geographic region. Instead, it created a broad culture movement that resonated across age group, genders, and national boundaries. The scale of audience engagement reflected both emotional investment and sustained interest long after initial release. From a demographic perspective, the film attracted a remarkably diverse audience. Teenagers and young adults form a significant portion of nearly viewers, particularly drawn by the romantic element and youthful lead actor. Many within this age group attended particularly responded enthusiastically to the emotional core of the story, often citing the relationship dynamic and dramatic intensity as central reason for their engagement. At the same time, older viewers were drawn by the historical background and epic scale, which added layer of gravitas beyond a typical romance film. This cross-generational appeal broadened its reach beyond the usual boundaries of digestible romance genre. Viewers' feedback during the original theatrical run frequently emphasized emotional intensity. Many audience members described the film as deeply moving, with reaction ranges from quiet reflection to visible display of emotion in theater. Reports of audience remaining seated during the end credit were common, suggesting a strong immersive effect. Word of mouth play a crucial role in sustaining attendance. Positive recommendations from friends, family members, and colleagues reinforce the perception that the film was a essential culture experience rather than simply an other theatrical release. Engagement extended beyond ticket sale. Conversation about the film became widespread in school, workplace, and media outlet. The soundtrack popularity further amplified audience interaction as music served as an emotional reminder of the viewing experience. Merchandise and memorabilia also reflective active fan participation. This level of engagement indicates that audience did not merely watch the film, many incorporated it into their broader culture environment. Internationally, reactions mirror domestic trend in region across Europe, Asia. Viewers demonstrated similar and emotional response and repeated audience pattern. Cultural differences and did not significantly diminish audience connection. Instead, the film universal themes appear to transcend language and national context. This broad response suggests that the emotional framework was accessible to varied culture audience. Audience reaction were not uniformly positive. However, some viewers expressed criticism regarding the film's length, pacing, or heightened melodramatic tone. A minority felt that certain narrative elements lean toward sentimentality, yet even among critics, acknowledgement of the film's technical ambition and large-scale spectacle was common. Importantly, negative reaction did not appear to significantly dampen overall engagement or box office longevity. The phenomena of repeat viewing is particularly notable in assessing audience response. Unlike many blockbuster films that rely heavily on a strong opening weekend, Titanic maintains steady attendance over months. Repeat engagement suggests that viewers found value not only in the narrative outcome but in the emotional journey itself. For many, the film became an event worth revealing, reinforcing its reputation as a shared culture experience. Media coverage amplified public reaction, interview, award recognition, and ongoing discussion kept the film present in public discourse. Audience enthusiasm often translated into celebratory response during award season, further threatening communal identification with the film's success. This feedback loop between the viewers and the media attention reinforces cultural footprint. Audience reaction to Titanic were characterized by broad demographic appeal, intense emotional feedback, and sustained engagement. Viewer crosses age group and region responded strongly to its combination of spectacle and intimacy. While some criticism existed, the overall reaction reflected deep cultural impact and long-term resonance. The film reception demonstrated how emotional storytelling, when aligned with large-scale production, can create a global audience experience that extends well beyond the theater. Titanic provides a clear example of how box office performance can significantly shape public and critical perception. Financial success does not automatically determine artistic merit, yet in the case of this film, its extraordinary commercial result influence how audience critics and industry professionals evaluated over time. At the time of the release, critical reception was generally positive, though not universally unanimous. Some reviewers praised its scale, emotional resonance, and technical achievement, while others questioned its sentimentality and length. However, as box office number continued to rise week after week, the conservation shifted. Sustained commercial dominance created a perception of cultural validation. This sheer magnitude of audience turnout suggested that the film had connected with viewers on a large scale. And now we talk about when it became one of the highest grossing film in industry history. That risk was reframed as visionary ambition. The studios involved benefited from enhanced credibility, demonstrating their capacity to support large-scale projects that would achieve both commercial and cultural impact. This shift in reputation likely influenced future decisions to invest in expensive, technically ambitious production. General comparison further illustrated how financial outcomes shape perception. Before this film, large-scale disaster dramas and historical epic have experienced mixed box office results. Some had succeeded while others struggled to justify their cause. Titanic performance elevated the perceived viability of becoming a romance with epic subtitle. Its box office dominance suggested that audiences were willing to embrace emotionally driven narrative with a high budget framework. As a result, subsequent films in related genre were often compared against its financial benchmark. Commercial success can also affect how films are remembered over time. A film that achieve record breaking earning tend to be labeled as a cultural phenomenon regardless of individual viewer opinion. In this case, box office dominance contributed to its enduring identity as a defining thematic event of the late 90s. The number themselves became the part of the narrative surrounding the film, reinforcing its symbolic importance in industry time. At the same time, extreme success can generate escapism. Skepticism. Some critics argue that popularity does not necessarily equate to artistic depth, and such argument occasionally resurfaced in discussion of the film's legacy. Nevertheless, the certain global audience response provided strong counterbalance to these critics. The balance of engagement make it difficult to dismiss the film as merely a commercial spectacle. Titanic demonstrates how box office performance can significantly influence perception. Strong earning, reinforced positive critical assessment, elevated studio prestige, reshaped genre expectation, and secured long-term cultural recognition. Financial success did not solely define its legacy, but it undeniably amplified its impact on both public and industry perspective. Titanic stands as a landmark in cinematic scale and emotional storytelling, blending spectacle with intimacy in a way few films have achieved. From a cinematic quality perspective, the film demonstrated meticulous craftsmanship. The visual composition, large-scale set design, and technical coordination create a fully immersive environment. The production value is undeniably one of the greatest strengths. The tension to detail in recreating historical setting and seamlessness integration of practical and visual effect contribute to a sense of authenticity that remain impressive decade later. But the performance anchored the spectacle with emotional grounding. Leonardo DiCaprio brings youthful energy and sincerity, while Kate Winslet deliver a layered portrayal marked by vulnerability and determination. Their on-screen chemistry is central to the film emotional resonance. The supporting cast add gravitas, providing tonal balance and reinforcing the drama weight of the narrative. Thematically, the film explored love, class, division, fate, and human fragility. That these themes are presenting in accessible way, allowing audience from diverse background to connect with the story. Its emotional arc are clear and direct, which enhance broad appeal. However, the film is not without weakness. Some viewers may find the melodramatic tone occasionally excessive, and extended runtime can feel indulgent. Certain dialogue moments lean towards sentimentality, potentially diminishing subtle. Despite these issues, the overall execution remained compelling. In final assessment, Titanic succeed because it paired technical ambition with emotional clarity. While it may not satisfy those seeking understated storytelling, its scale, performance, and thematic sincerity secure its place on as a defining cinematic achievement. Titanic is best suited for viewers who appreciate emotionally driven storytelling combined with large-scale cinematic spectacle. Audience who enjoy epic romance, historical dramas, and visually immersive production are likely to find the film deeply satisfying. Its style blends sweeping visual with intimate character moment, making it appealing to those who value both grandeur and personal emotion in the same narrative experience. In terms of age group, the film is generally appreciated for teenagers and younger teens who can engage with mature emotional themes, may connect strongly with the romantic element, while adults will often appreciate the historical atmosphere and dramatic where the pacing is deliberate rather than fast pacing. So viewers who enjoy slow building tension and character focused storytelling will respond more positively than those seeking rapid action or constant plot twist. Genre preferences play a major role in determining engagement enjoyment. Fans of romance will likely be drawn to the emotional arc and the relationship dynamic. Admirers of the historical setting may appreciate the attention to detail and atmospheric reconstruction. Viewer who favor disaster survival drama may also find the large scale sequence compiling the film emotional resonance rely heavily on empathy. So audience who value heartfelt storytelling and emotional catharsis are the ideal target. On the other hand, those who prefer minimalistic narrative subtitled on or tightly condensed runtime may find the film overly expensive. Viewers who are less interested in romance as a central focus might not connect as strongly with its core themes. Over, Titanic is recommended for audience seeking an emotionally immersive, visually grand cinematic experience rather than a purely action driven or understating drama.